This is Call with Dads, where we dive into the ups, downs, and everything in between when it comes to being a dad. Here, it's all about connecting with a community of dads who are committed to learning and leveling up as fathers. Welcome to Call with Dads. Let's talk.
I seriously doubt that was a fail on, with as much as they put that skit in there.
Right.
If they wanted to, they could have had Wilson covered by the hat bill or something.
Right.
I mean, yeah, so... Oh yeah, let's start diving in. Speaking of failures and all this, since I doubt anyone's really going to care here in our home improvement from the '90s TV show talk.
Yes.
Because I don't think that's why people are here to listen to us, but
I am. That's why I'm here.
Show.
I believe
we actually
that.
do 2 podcasts. The other podcast is a home improvement fans podcast. Where you know, everything
home improvement only fans podcast.
I'm actually the vice president of the fan club.
Yeah. Where we only talk about things of home improvement with fans.
My specific topic is how I utilize AI to bring up nude pictures of Wilson.
That is just creepy as...
Someone would pay a subscription for that.
Right.
Weirdly enough, I wouldn't doubt that, to be honest with you.
I believe that it would be a real thing.
I bet you could just like watch episodes of Home Improvement and pull the lessons from them. Just have like an advice, like Wilson's advice throughout Home Improvement.
Yeah, right.
I kid you
be
not.
Such a specific like
put it
thing
in AI.
Well, like there's
to teach you everything, all the things from Wilson's.
There are people, I have been seeing it online lately, where people are pulling home improvement clips and using them. It's the weirdest thing. I've been seeing this, like, one video is where somebody's saying, well, this is how you should teach your son, and it shows Tim, the tool man, doing something with his kids, or advice that Wilson says, or whatever it is, right? And then you have the exact same clip saying, well, this is such BS and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting there thinking, it's a show. It's a bunch of writers that sat down and said, this is my opinion. Like us, we have opinions. Now, I don't know if Tim Allen, how big of a part he played in the writing, but
pretty large, pretty heavy.
I was going to say, I thought he had a big part in it, but if that's the case, it wouldn't surprise me with the views that they had, because his views back then matched common sense, which lacks today. But, the one thing I'm trying to figure out. So with all the failures that I've had in my life, it's been interesting to see, looking back, the things I've done and been able to recover and all this. And what so have you. When it comes to you guys, the failures you've had in your lives, the failures you've watched happen with your family and what so have you, how do you guys address this? What do you guys find to be something that either is almost impossible to comprehend while it's going on that you realize is good, or how do you deal with the falling flat on your face and using that to your benefit?
Yeah, I mean, I
Thoughts?
definitely have had way too many failures in my life. It's such an interesting topic to touch on, it's like, but at the same time, I kind of like to turn it on its head, and maybe it's just me being like, I don't know, woo woo. But I think that you never really have like a failure, right? I mean, the only failure is like staying at the bottom, like anything you do to like fight, move forward, progress through life is, even if you're not successful in the general sense of the term, I mean, you're still propelling yourself forward. So I think any individual failure is kind of pales in comparison to the scope of the entirety of a human life, and so but that's a hard thing to find solace in, right? When you're in the moment and everything's burning down around you, or whatever, like you said, homeless, right. Or you lost your job, or you just, or it could even be worse. You don't know where your next meal is going to come from. So,
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is, like I said, just make sure that you're moving in a forward direction. That's kind of what I tell myself. And it's interesting too, because you can look back on those failures. I mean, especially if you really sit down and think about it and find specific lessons that have kind of made you who you are, or got you to the point you're at now. So,
Yeah. I would say for me, I mean, when it comes to failure, my life has been, you know, I guess completely revolved around ensuring success. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
I mean, a large portion of it was in the military. So if there is no success, there's death. That's the difference. That's the separation between normal civilian life and active duty military. If you're in the military, for the most part, everything revolves around a mission, and that mission is, stopping the enemy. Even if it's something as simple as changing a tire on an aircraft. You know what I mean? Something that simple. You know what I mean?
I mean,
If you don't complete the mission, it involves death. And that was, but that was one thing. Being in the military, a lot of the leaders, as well as myself, becoming a leader over time, we learned that lesson. We knew that lesson. That was something they taught. They taught us that failure is important. You have to fail. It's something you have to absolutely do. That's why we trained over and over and over and over
mm-hmm.
and over and over again. Train and train and train. Then you do exercises, and you do where you're not training anymore. You're doing it for real, but it's more of not against an adversary. It's just against each other. We pretend fight against each other. Those are called exercises, where we exercise the issue. And those are expected failures. The failures are supposed to be there. They have analysis teams and people that read and study this stuff to ensure we learn from our failures, to ensure that next time, maybe we don't solve them all, but we at least solve one, or partially solve one, or at least get better at the initial failure. Because the failure doesn't necessarily mean it's a black and white line, like you did this and here's where you failed. It's more of just an overall. It could be 45 things that caused the failure of one thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that was something that we knew and we learned in the military, that failure is important. As a younger man, I would say prior to the military, my family it wasn't like that. There was no such thing. If you failed or you weren't enough, you were a loser. You know what I mean? So I was always taught that it was wrong to fail or be worthless or whatever. That was something more so I had to learn in my older age. And
mm-hmm.
I mean, I've failed all through my life.
Mm-hmm.
I got involved in drugs when I was younger. I did the whole thing that I'm preaching to people now not to do, is to run around and sleep around and.
This is how I know.
Right. Yeah. This is how I know not to do that. And the best part is I know that I'm going to tell my daughter when she's older to, restrict yourself, save yourself. Don't go sleeping around. I know this because I did this. Well, that's exactly what my parents told me, and what did I do? Completely opposite.
Yeah. That's a whole nother topic altogether, right. I guess, right? So, but how do you break that cycle, right? I mean,
right.
You learn from your failures. You want other people to learn from your failures, but how do you convey those lessons? Mm-hmm. Through narrative, I guess, but part of that, there's experience that has to go along with that.
Yeah.
You have to experience the failure, like you almost have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that was one thing that I failed to do. My parents failed to do too. Don't do this, and then what did I do? Go and do it. Right. So. Now I learned a invaluable lesson or a valuable lesson that has now caused me to, in my much older age, to, have a 6-year-old daughter at the age of 40. When my daughter at the age of 40 probably should be early teens. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Maybe I could have 2. You know what I mean? Maybe I'd be a little bit further on in life. There's 100 what ifs. I don't hate my life or think it's bad. I love my life. My wife and daughter are absolutely wonderful. But I look back and there's 1,000 things that I know I failed on, and I could absolutely have done much better. But I also look at those failures and go, I mean, I am who I am today because of those failures. You know, I've developed what I have. You know what I mean? Think about what, you know, I know just the three of us here have probably failed 1,000 times combined, you know, and what do we create? I mean, we have a nonprofit. We have three you know, social media presences that are actively helping men and helping people and families across. You know, we may not be, you know, scratching the surface of millions and millions and millions of people, but we change the life of one person. I can almost guarantee we've changed the life of one person.
Oh,
You know what I
I
mean?
can guarantee we've done more than definitely one.
Right.
But yeah, I
Right.
get your point. The and like you said, yeah, we reach out and yeah, we've definitely failed and
Mm,
trust me, I can promise you on my end, I've messed a lot up just trying to get this working properly. But
right.
the um the overall result is each failure kind of like
Mm,
when so like I ran the author podcast beforehand, right?
right.
I have so many mistakes with that thing and people still watch it. I'm I'm amazed when I just randomly check the YouTube and see that it's even getting subscribers still. And I'm like, why? It's
Yeah.
but
It's
Maybe
even
they
more.
like I mean, they subscribe because they want to see the videos that you have already created. You know, and make sure they have
they can
access
come
to those.
back.
Well, that's
Yeah,
good. That
but
means people are still finding value in it. That's great. You know.
exactly. But the point is my mistakes from that actually made getting this started a lot easier. So we were able to have a smoother process in managing what we do here. So, I mean, like, there's still things that I'm working on to make this a better opportunity, but part of
Mm.
that's also we need to find sponsors or something that can
Yeah, that
sorry,
would help pay
but
for microphones, audio equipment, stuff like that. That would
well,
be
recording software, things like
right.
that.
Running software. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So, I mean, my failures basically in the military were what you know, taught me so much of what I know today, as well as my failures as a young man. Gave me a lot of aspect when I joined the military. So I basically did a lot of failures as a young man, and then joined the military. And while I was in the military, because of those failures, I kind of knew a lot of this to do and this to not do. Granted, being in the military kind of assisted in some of my failures. When you travel the world, you kind of do worldly things.
Hmm.
But yeah, so some of those failures in long term today um, have kind of showed me what to do in the future. And then, um, you know, so that's why I was saying, look at what we built. You know what I mean? All
right.
those failures, and today we're here with 3 different social media accounts, you know, multiple websites, and we're doing our best to, you know, change as many people, as many lives as physically possible, and all for free. So far, all of us have been doing it for free. None of
Yeah.
us really. I'm not a millionaire. I don't have tons of millions of dollars. You know what I mean?
No, trust me.
That's about it.
Yeah, we're all working to pay bills and
Right.
we
I
don't
work.
do this to make a whole lot of money or what so have you. Now, you know,
I mean, I
ugh,
started a nonprofit. What's the definition of a nonprofit? It's in the name. No
Hmm.
profit.
yeah.
You know. So I could have easily started a business, but I didn't. I started a nonprofit. So.
Yeah, the one thing that kind of is setting in my mind is we do all this work to kind of build up a future, build up. And I think one big problem that a lot of people have, and this is something I've seen, like, for an example, I had a buddy years ago, right, who he was on top of the world, got out of the Marines, was doing all this stuff, being very productive, and then something just happened. Great guy, loved him to death, but something just happened where he had a failure, a roadblock, a bump in the road, something, right? And that ended up making him stumble to the point that he just really gave up. He acted like he was trying. He acted like he wanted more. And mind you, at this point, I don't know what happened to him. He just faded off the planet of the earth, as far as I know. I hope the best for him, but from last I knew, he just gave up because he didn't want to keep failing. He let that be his determining factor, and then everything after that was, well, it's always somebody else's fault because he didn't want to be responsible. He didn't want to take the risks, this and that. So he let other people make decisions for him, determining this is what I am. This is what I do. Like for me, I fail constantly. I mentioned that. I have no problem admitting it. If I fail, I try to repurpose my failures to something positive, like homes. I failed on that, but I'm reworking that website and creating a thing so I can use it for creating a co-op for my son and my kids to be part of. You know, so
Yeah.
I have the system set up. I have a lot of it. It's just tweaking a few things that I can use for a positive co-op, and then adding stuff into it as I need to be a very useful tool for that, right? So one failure hopefully leads to something else. Now, mind you, I'm not going to get rich off the co-op by any means. I mean, it's going to be a whole lot more headaches than the financial payoff of it. In fact, I'll probably be paying more than the other people will be just to handle everything. But the overall outcome of it will be positive for my kids. So I think, building off those failures, and for Mr. Pancakes, for you being military, and even Tom, with you being fire department, you guys have completely different backgrounds than I do. I've been sales, architectural design, um, an SOB, all these things, just kind of a wide range of hats. But you're in more of you guys have either been in or are in a more structured kind of environment where they push. If you fail, you learn. If you fail, you learn. Every failure is a stepping stone for this, right?
Right.
So how does because most people don't have that. Most people, they fail, they don't know to get up. Some people, it's never even been taught or even know to teach their kids. Get up, wipe the mud off your face, flick it at the person that knocked you down, and keep going.
Well,
how do you guys look at that?
I would say one of the things that helps in failure, and one of the things that gets you through failure and builds on your failure, where you can learn and grow and become more resilient, more strong, faster, whatever it is you're doing, whatever the case is, to where next time you do something, you maybe do it better or learn or whatever the case is. And basically, when you fail, how do you not fail? I can tell you the best thing was the people around me, was my network, my group of friends, my family. And I don't mean my family where I came from, because my family where I came from, they're all right, they're not bad, but it's just not number one. They weren't the most resilient, I guess. But when you join the military, you get people from all aspects of life, and you surround yourself with a bunch of other young people that are from, I'm from Florida, they're from Kansas, this person's from Kentucky, that person's from Indiana, this guy's from Venezuela and moved here and got his, citizenship through becoming an American. So you have all these different walks of life that came in, and you're like, we're all looking at each other like the Spider-Man meme. Everybody's looking at each other like, you're the same. Nobody knows each other, and nobody knows what to do. Well, you have a foundation of sergeants, lieutenants, master sergeants, chief master sergeants, captains, so on and so forth, all above you, that have all been right where you're at. You know what I mean? It's a revolving, or not a revolving door, but I would say like a ladder, where you just everyone's been where you are. You have to start here, and everyone has slowly gone up the ladder. The more you've learned, the more stripes you have, or the more brass you have, and it just keeps going and keeps building. And the harder you work, the more you get. And the further up you go. And then those people, like the captains and majors and colonels, those people help out the chief master sergeants and the master sergeants, and then the master sergeants help out the staff sergeants, and then the staff sergeants help out the young privates or airmen or whatever, and everybody just helps down, and that's how you grow together. That my staff sergeant, when I was brand new, he didn't always say, no, stop, don't do that, do it this way. He did a lot, but there were also times where he's just like, yeah, go ahead, stick the penny in the socket. We find out real quick.
See what happens, idiot.
And I did it, found out, and didn't do it again. So, there are a lot of times when that analogy plays into part of mentorship, and who you have around you to mentor you is really a big part of failure. So,
yeah, the hierarchy is always nice. I mean, it does seem like that's kind of what we're trying to do in some ways. So it's like mentorship, right? I mean, you have these people that have been there before. That's true for any like hierarchically organized organization, but particularly ones that are developed around competence, like the military or the fire service or something like that. Right. But you have these mentors that have kind of been there, done that. They've got experience is highly valued in those types of communities. Because there's just so much that experience has to teach you, which goes back and touches on some of the stuff we were talking about earlier about, how experience is kind of necessary in some ways to solidify the lessons that come with failure. It seems like it's something you can't always impart to other people, but you can certainly do your best, right? And that's where mentorship comes in. It's kind of a way to impart, my experience and, maybe provide you a lesson that can help you, along the way. It's like the shepherd. It's a good analogy. It's like you're like guiding. Like if this gentle guiding hand kind of offers sage advice. Hopefully, you will get there one day through enough failure of your own.
So now let me direct this into where I think it's going to be beneficial, because those opinions or those views helped me lead into this. How do you use those structures, those mentorships, those family, outside of your family relationships, when it comes to being a father, when it comes to raising your kids, dealing with your kids? Like, personally, I use my failures with telling my kids, yes, I messed up. Look at what I've done. Or, I want you to be better. Like, my son was a 7-year-old was criticizing how I wrote my twos. And I'm like, yes, Daddy writes them differently. So, but I take the time to explain them. I want you to be better because I made these mistakes. I want you not to make the same mistakes because I want you to learn from what I have to tell you.
Right.
How do you guys implement what you've learned from the structures that you guys are either in or been in to working with your children?
I would say in the earlier years, it's really going to be hard to pinpoint a specific thing. Because there's really not much other than eat your green beans, clean your room, go to bed at 6, make sure I change diapers on time, whatever the case is. All these, when they're younger, there are life lessons, but they're really not a lot. I would say at the younger years, learning the things that I did made me want to be more, I guess it's hard to explain. I guess strict, but follow through as well. So if I, and not to be so like, oh, it's a baby, that was one thing that I had to kind of set aside and understand. 2-year-olds are smarter than you think, they really are. They're way smarter than you believe. So, and they absorb way more information than you think. Same thing with 3 and 4 and 5 and 6. So that thing that you don't think you should be teaching them at this age because they're probably too young. I don't think so. I think you should be a little bit hard on them. You know what I mean? From the beginning. And a spanking. As much as oh, God forbid, I'm going to get canceled. God forbid I spank my child. Yes, at 2 years old, you should tell your son or daughter, no, don't do that. Or like my daughter, one of the things she used to do is she would scream. Because when they're 2, you have to brush their teeth. You can't expect them to brush their teeth. Their teeth will rot out of their face, right?
Right.
So you have to brush their teeth. But what my daughter would do is she would like scream, and then she would bite the toothbrush. She would snatch it and sling, or she'd grab the toothpaste bottle and squeeze it. She'd get pissed off and throw it, and I would tell her to stop. Stop doing that. But it's something you can't be like, stop doing that, stop doing that, stop doing that. You have to learn to be like, don't do that, or you're gonna get a spanking. And then when they do it again, follow through.
Yeah.
Spank. And that those type of so that's a different type of, I guess something that I learned over the years as a younger man that I should have done more. I did, but I should have done more of it. And then when they're older, they're going to be more so life lessons. But it was like we were discussing earlier. How do you teach your kid not to go gallivanting the world and not to go soiling their royal oats as much, it's a logical sounding thing to do. Go soil your royal oats. Go get some experience and some life experience, some worldly experience. Go do all this. Try this, try that, and then eventually settle down. And you won't have all these desires. Well, that's wrong. It's incorrect. It's incorrect because I know so. Because I did it. You know what I mean? It seems the 3 of us have also done it, as well as my brother, my parents, a ton of people that I know today, parents that my kid goes to school with, people that I know in the military, tons and tons and tons of people were tricked into thinking, in their 20s, they should go party, try new things, get it out of their system. It was wrong. Right. It was way wrong. But my parents told me that. They said, don't go do that. Find you somebody good. Settle down young. Have kids. Mm-hmm. My parents told me that, and I didn't listen. But I know if I tell my daughter that, she's going to do exactly what I did. She's not going to listen. So what do I do to, like you said, break the cycle, get her to stop, get her to do what I didn't, or get her to not do what I did, and get her to not do what my parents did. There's a cycle there.
I don't know about your, childhood situation, honestly, but sounds like it was fairly stable. I mean, I know mine was too, and it was similar things, right? Parents kind of taught me. And then just kind of went out and did my thing anyway. But mine was. But I don't think that's always the case. I think that
I came from a broken home, but I had parents. They existed.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I guess just be more present than your father was, I guess, is another option. Or lead by example. Because I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? They don't always listen to what we say, but they always watch what we do.
Right.
Lead by example. Jim Rohn has a really funny. I think it's really funny. I like Jim Rohn. He's a funny guy. But he has a quip in one of his shows about teaching your kids, how the importance of making good decisions. And he says, you could drive over to the wrong side of town, show them around and teach them that these are where people that make those types of decisions end up. He says, unless you live there, and then just walk outside. You know what I mean? And it's, it sounds like funny advice, but honestly, it goes way deeper, when you kind of think about that, that little quip. Yeah.
Right.
And talking about talking about learning from, our experience and using that in and kind of, it sounds like that's where you're going with the question originally, Eric, was kind of like, how do we apply what we've learned in our respective fields to parenting? At least that's how I interpreted it. So I guess that was where originally I went. But my thoughts on that is the fire service and the military are very militant organizations. There's like no room for error. There's, you know what I mean? What's expected of you, and you either get on or you fall short, and you fall short, and there's consequences, period, the end.
Right.
And, I'm your commanding officer. I say what, I say what I said, and you do what I said. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's it. And that, as much as that is in line with my parenting style, I find that with my daughters, I find with my daughters that I can't always do that. It's not always effective,
Right.
Sometimes it backfires. It creates emotional reactions, whereas, and I wouldn't respond that way, but that doesn't mean that and unfortunately it's just, the consequences aren't the same, right? What am I supposed to do? I can't fire my kid. Right. I can't, you know what I mean? Like I can't, whatever, kick my kid out of the house,
You can't punish your daughter under the Article 15 UCMJ.
Exactly. I can't have her court-martialed, I can't, I can't, it's like, so what I do,
Right.
Well, sometimes you just have to kind of, it's a balancing act, so I have to remember sometimes that that's not the only way.
Right.
As much as I support, things like spanking and stuff, like traditional types of punishment.
Right.
It's not the be all end all of raising a kid,
Yeah, 100%. I'm the same way.
Thinking back about some of our other conversations, some things that Tom and Mr. Pancake, both of you have said, and thinking about everything as a whole, one thing that kind of is running through my head is, like, Tom, you talked about your daughter picking up in a previous episode. She read the ingredients on food and put it back. Yes. And she said, well, I can't pronounce half of it. Part of that is how you raised her, this and that. And the fact is who we have our children around. So I've had lots of friends that's been in the military. And one thing that I do kind of hear them talk about, or I used to hear them talk about, was how they knew their structure of their group, their platoon, I forget the terms for each branch they were in, but the general boiling down to it came to is they were all in one group. They didn't socialize outside of that group very often, other than to go do the things that, and part of it was they went out and did stuff that was unethical, unmoral, whatever you want to call it, because the structure of the military was telling them that's what you were supposed to do. But when it came to how to act as an officer, how to act when you're in the presence of an officer, all these things, they all had the same thing to say is, well, that's what we were taught. No one broke what the group did. And it made me realize that the group, when you're in a group and you go out and you say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We are going to do this. And everyone accepts it. No one breaks that, even when somebody new comes in. So when you surround your kids with a group of people and you raise them, and you're like, hey, not just food can be toxic to your body, your mind, all this stuff. The people that you allow around you, the people that you talk with, the things you hear, the things you watch, things like that. Like Mr. Pancakes, you didn't let your kid watch TV for the first year. I barely let my kids watch TV now, and it's a select few shows that they watch, and they don't watch anything unless I'm right there with them. Oh, yeah. So, same. I mean, I realized that I gave my son a little more credit to watch this this show on YouTube called The Y-Files. A 7-year-old should not be learning about the Mantis Man conspiracy. We'll just but
never sleep
there's I'm telling you, I'll never get the Wi-Fi to come on here, but the general fact is that the again, that goes to failure, because trust me, that led to some hard staying up late night, kind of trying to get my kid to go to sleep thing. But
Mm-hmm.
as a whole, the whole thing comes down to is that with what we allow them to put into their minds and their body, and the structure that we put around them. So if we put, like in the military, you follow orders, you do this, you do that, but outside of the military, this is how you act. If we instill, the military has that instillment. Mr. Pancakes, you said that when you got married, that that culture kind of turned on you a little bit of, hey, you're nowhere near her. You have time where you're not going to be close to her. Why not just go do this? Why not do this? Et cetera, et cetera. And you're like, no, you really had to fight against, because you had that pressures of that culture coming against you. Where, like for my kids, for an example, we are homeschooling. I am very adamant about watching who's around my kids. I pay attention to these things. We have a nanny that we use so that I can work while homeschooling, and it's a trade-off to be able to afford to do that so I can also pay the bills. It's one of these things, you figure out what's the best for your family. Now, overall, that being said and done, my kids, my goal is to have them have a really healthy mind, a really stable way of thinking, so that they're not sitting there going, oh, well, I need to go out and gallivant and travel the world and like do the things my dad did. Or my dad finally, I'm 20 some years old, and my dad finally finished that memoir that he started 20 years ago. You know what I mean? So, and reading that saying, yeah, I don't want to do these things. I see where it led him. Right. And because, don't get me wrong, I have a great life right now, but could I have had this great life earlier in life? Yes, right. I really could have. And don't get me wrong, I wouldn't trade my kids, my wife, the farm that my family has built up here, in the sense of all the pets and creatures my son brings in. But yeah, I could have had this earlier and could have been enjoying it. And at this age, I could even be a grandfather. It's right. I know a lot of people I went to school with that are now grandparents, which to me just feels weird. But I mean, I have a 7 and a 3-year-old, and somebody at graduate school is talking about their grandkids. I'm like, that's not right, is it? I mean, I'm not that old. But the fact is listening to thinking about our past conversations, the things, and that's one thing that I think, taking our failures, our past, and building off of it to improve on, like people that listen to our conversations, right? They might not remember everything we say, but they can take bits and pieces and build off of that and grow what we've done to have a more stable way of addressing issues. Yeah. I think mentorship is an important thing, something that you both have mentioned numerous times. Mentorship is powerful. I mean, that's a strong area, that how I'm seeing it and thinking about what we've talked. What's your guys' opinion of my ramblings, out of curiosity?
Well, I actually wanted to share one sort of specific failure on my part as a parent. So this is sort of a specific sort of style story. As you were discussing how I didn't really let my kid ever watch TV for like the first, I think, man, it was like we didn't even own a TV for like the first 2.5 years. Like, just didn't own one. There was no point, because if we knew I wanted to watch it, so I would turn it on, in front of my kid, and so on and so forth. So we just decided not to have one. And as she got older, we got one. We didn't really let her watch it, but we would allow like Cocomelon songs, or just like the silly little things, like the simple ones, not actual shows or things. As she kind of grew a little bit older, but as she got a little bit older, I think she's about 4 or 5. We met a family, nice family. There's nothing wrong with them or whatever, but they let their kid watch TV like without supervision whatsoever. She knows how to use the remote and so on and so forth. And we never really put 2 and 2 together right away. It took us a little bit of time. But we would go over there, it was good because they had a kid, so we would go over their house and hang out, spend time with them. Our kids would hang out. They're similar in age, I think the other kid was about a year older, and we would let them spend time together and hang out and have fun, and they loved it. They would all play and whatever, and Mommy and Daddy would get to go out and have a couple of beers, chit chat and BS with their parents, and we'd sit out on the back porch. They smoke, we don't smoke, but they would smoke and drink, and we would drink, and we'd just hang out, watch silly YouTube videos, or the one thing we used to do is YouTube has these things where it play like a split second of the beginning of a song. You try and guess it before the timer runs out, and we would watch those, just drink and hang out and watch that stuff. And it was kind of a good Saturday or Friday evening for the parents, kind of unwind and relax. So innocently, we didn't really think anything of it. We thought that's probably good for us and good for her. She gets away from us, goes to play with the kid, right? Their kid. On top of, we get the de-wind, de-stress. Well, the entire time, we never really realized she's going in there, and they're in there watching TV and YouTubing and all over Disney. And we figured it out when we're like, now that she's 6 years old, we figured it out probably a few months ago, probably about maybe 3-4 months ago. We're like, well, we got this movie. We were gonna, now that you're a little bit older, we would think you can possibly watch it. It's like Aladdin or something. You know what I mean? Aladdin at 4 years old, sometimes I think the thing is like scary, whatever. Right. So now that she's 6, she's almost 7. It's probably, hey, yeah, you can watch it now. And there was a couple of them, and we were like, and she was like, oh, I already watched it. And we're like, where'd you watch it? Oh, over so and so's. And we're like, oh, how long ago? I watched it like a couple of times over there, a long time ago. Oh man, come on. Like, well, we eventually started prying. What else did you watch? What else did you watch? All these Disney movies that we would have never even approved of in the first place. I would let her watch it at all. You know what I mean? They're not terrible. I mean, most of it's just, most of the stuff in those Disney movies are innuendos that kids that age aren't even going to catch. You know what I mean? So it's not like detrimental or anything. But, I mean, my daughter still watched all the stuff I didn't want her to watch. I allowed it to happen. Even though we restricted our TV, we did all that stuff, but in the sake of our own personal kind of, stress release, we let the reins a little loose, and we did something we should have just paid a little bit more attention, on what they were doing while they were in the house, because they would be in the house, we'd be in the back porch. We should have stepped in every so often, maybe every time I finish a beer.
Right.
Finish my beer, step in and be like, hey, what you guys doing? Oh, you're watching that? That's not okay. Click, off. You know what I mean? Maybe something of that nature, and we never did. We just would go out there, and we would let them be for like 4 hours, and we would go and have our hangout time. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. That, to me, was a little bit of a failure on my part.
Do these people still watch your kids?
No. We kind of there were quite a few other things that kind of perspired that we kind of just stopped, and they never watched our kids. We would go hang out with them. You know what I mean?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, like Friday night, me, my wife, and my daughter would all go over to their house, or they would come over to our house, and we would all the adults, me and my wife and the other two, would go out on the back porch, and hang out outside, drink and talk and BS and watch YouTube or whatever, and the kids would stay inside and play. They would either play or they would, we found out they were watching movies and doing stuff and watching things we weren't, approved of.
I see.
Right.
So that's kind of a failure. The failure is not that we allowed it to happen, is that we never really stepped in to check on them. We were just,
Yeah.
they're
Let them
4,
free
5.
range.
Yeah, they're 4, they're 5. What can they really do?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As
Right.
long as they weren't getting hurt. I mean, we would poke in now and then, make sure they're okay, which of course they were. You okay?
Right.
Yeah, okay, cool, see ya, and we go back.
Yeah, I got you.
It's good to let her have that independence, but at the same time, we should have been a little bit more vigilant. The TV's on.
I mean,
why is the TV on? You two should be playing puzzles.
Think of how much stuff we were. I mean, so there was no attempt whatsoever to prevent me from being. I don't mean to be disrespectful to my parents because my parents did a great job, but I'm saying that that it seemed as though that there was little attempt to prevent me from being exposed to things like that. Maybe I'm assuming entirely out of ignorance, never out of negligence. But
my dad would purposely rent Child's Play like Chucky, and we would watch.
Yeah, see, well, that's a bit much.
Years old.
So and I was exposed to all kinds of stuff, and I think any attempt whatsoever to reduce the exposure of your children to that kind of stuff is a step in the right direction. There's always going to be a couple things here and there. You're not going to ruin,
right.
What I mean?
Yeah. It's understanding that it didn't ruin my daughter forever, because like I said, most stuff in those Disney movies are innuendos for the most part.
Yeah.
But it still was like I look at it as a parenting failure that I can learn from. So now as she's older, now when those type of things, really what she watches may actually take a hold or take an effect because she understands a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
great.
Do you have something to say, Eric? I'm sorry.
No, I always have something to say, but it's nothing to.
Me too.
So go ahead. Let's hear what you have.
If it's in response to Pancakes, you go ahead, because I was gonna say something else.
So here's
in
kind
response,
of my
but adjacent.
Okay. So here's kind of my thought with this is, it's one of those things, like kind of going off your story. I go over to my neighbors. We have a couple beers, sit around the fire. My daughter will run inside and be with the lady, who we call her aunt. While my son, he's out looking at bugs and what so have you. And I have no idea what they're doing inside, but they also know where I stand on a lot of things.
Right.
I think part of it comes with, like, I never think about what my daughter and her aunt's doing inside the house, because I have full trust in them, all this.
Mm.
And I think that plays a part in a lot of parents. Is it goes to, oh, well, they're close to me. I know these people, blah, blah, blah. You never think about other things. Now, for me, one thing is, because I've seen, like I said, I've had a lot of friends that's had kids, and I've seen how they handle their kids. So I realize, like, I have to be more straightforward about the things. Mm-hmm. My mom's even told me I'm a pain in the neck because of how I am. Know this. Like, I even heard, like, this morning example, my mom's in town. My daughter's daycare's closed. The nanny's on vacation. It's like a whole slew of everything, as you guys have seen, a whole slew of everything just happening all at once. And you're like, okay. And my mom put on a little video for my daughter to watch while my mom was trying to get herself around this in the morning, right? And I heard my mom go, "Oh no, that's Cocomelon. I know Daddy doesn't let you watch this." Yeah. So it's one of those things that you pick up, and you do have to be stringent about it. But there is times that you have to kind of sit back and say, okay, I trust you enough to do this. I trust the people I'm with, because I know I've been forward enough that the people I'm with, or the people I allow my kids to be with, they have learned. So, like, I've learned my lessons from watching how other parents have raised their kids, and the things that I don't like. And I know, but you're still going to end up, like you said, you had a family that you spent time with and enjoyed, and that you didn't think anything of it because to you, they're kids.
Right.
You think how your kid is, and you don't think of how other kids are, how other people deal with their kids.
Mm-hmm.
So my only one of my saving graces.
Sorry,
What's that?
this kind of to your point about what you were saying. Not to cut you off, my bad, but
You're fine.
what you were saying, was it your wife or your mom kind of gets annoyed that you're kind of tough or whatever,
Right.
when you meet new people and stuff. And my wife does the exact same thing. She gets mad at me all the time because it's almost like a lesson learned. When we first met people, we would just, nice to meet you, and then eventually down the road, we would find out, and back off. Now it's
Right.
like lesson learned. My wife gets mad at me that I do it, but in the end, she's happier because we don't have to deal with them for 6 months before we find out that they're homosexuals. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I roll up and I'm like, I'm a Christian. I'm MAGA. I don't like gays. I follow the Bible, and I'm pretty conservative. Nice to meet you. If you don't like that, I don't allow my kid to eat fast food at all. Zero. Period. No fast food. Not at all. If you're eating fast food, get it out of my house. And we find out real quick who they are because they either hang around or don't come back around. And so, and my wife gets mad at me. She's like, "You don't gotta be so rude to people." Well, they're not here anymore, are they?
Right.
Yeah.
So,
just want
Tom,
to cut
how about this? How about you finish this off with your final thoughts here and where you want to go with this? And then, because we have been kind of going at this for a while, and I don't want to take up too much of your guys' time. Plus, I do kind of have to work too.
I got some stuff to get done.
Yeah.
Well,
So, how about you wrap us up here, Tom?
So I had a humor. I was going a humorous direction with it, but
Good ending then.
yeah. So actually, we started the conversation talking about Wilson, and I told Mr. Pancakes while you stepped away for a second that I was putting together a real quick Wilson GPT. Yeah, and so I and I actually used Chat GPT to create the Wilson GPT, which is kind of funny. It's very meta. But as Pancakes was talking, I said I let my young child go to a friend's house, and they were exposed to a show that I wish they hadn't. Did I fail as a parent? So this is the quick response. He says, "Ah, well now, neighbor, that's a tender ache you're feeling. I can hear the care in your heart just by the way you phrased it. You know, I was weeding around my cucumbers this morning. Delicate little things, those vines. I found one that started curling toward a fence post, grabbing hold of something. Now, I didn't blame the vine for growing. I just gently turned it back toward the trellis I'd built. Parenting, my friend, is much the same. It's not about controlling every gust of wind. It's about being the steady hand that guides when the storm passes. You didn't fail. You trusted. You learned, and now you grow from it. That's parenting."
It's true.
That is
Wilson's
good.
wise. Wilson is
So that's Wilson's advice. I don't know if that helped or not, but
I think we need to
Use
get
AI
that.
to make it.
yeah, I'm
So
finishing
that-
it up now, and then I'll get like an actual link to the to the GPT.
Yeah, we're gonna have to incorporate that somehow. That's just fantastic.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, let's land this
Good
so
analogy
that.
too. The cucumber vine.
It
That was
definitely
good.
is.
That's good.
I'm impressed with what AI can do, but
I know.
I'll tell you what, that AI and using in family, we can go into the future topics of that because that's a whole nother world.
Right.
Let's do this. Tom, where do people find you if they have anything they want to reach out to you or what's have you?
I'm on X mostly. So at Earn Her Respect on X.com. Also, marriage-material.com is my merch. I guess feel free to go there and check it out. We got some really cool stuff. Family First mugs. Oh wait, it blurred out.
Put it in front of your face. There you
go.
Wilson.
like Wilson. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, marriage-material.com or at Earn Her Respect on X.
Perfect. Mr. Pancakes?
Yeah, as usual, the normal Pancakes with Your Dad on Facebook, Instagram, X, Truth Social, or on LinkedIn. Those are the 5 locations, and the website is, pancakeswithyourdad.com. That's kind of a centralized location. There's tons of information on there, woodworking stuff, some resources. There's a lot of fun stuff, information, blogs, as well as links to this podcast as well. And as y'all know, the nonprofit is officially kicked off. It is legal. We do have a 501c. I have the letter. I posted it online if you want to go on site and see the actual thing. The website is and always will be an ever growing process. So the more funding, the more you donate, the more money that we get will collectively go into that website and into multimedia to be able to spread the word about the traditional American family and just rebuilding society's culture, rebuilding the American culture. One of the things that I wanted to express and that I've been expressing online so far, and one of the main focuses of the American Liberty Foundation is, America's #1 in divorce. We're #1 in sex crimes. We're #1 in pornography consumption. We're #1 in fatherlessness. We're #1 in abortion. We're #1 in all these different disgusting things that are just terrible. America should be #1, right? America #1, but seems we're #1 in all these like wretched things and not the good things, because we're like number 27 in education, which makes no sense. Shouldn't we be #1 in education, not pornography consumption? So that's where the culture shift needs to happen, and that's what the American Liberty Foundation is all about. That's the entire point behind it. It's media and multimedia, education, information, all about what we can do to change and grow our culture back to the way it was originally, with a modern twist, obviously, because it's not 1955 anymore. It's 2025.
Right.
So
perfect.
Yeah, American-Liberty-Foundation.org.
Perfect. And both of your guys' information will be in the show notes so people can reach out to you. Callwithdads.com, where you find our YouTube, our Rumble. You can listen to the podcast. You can ask us questions there. Just shoot a message and talk with us. We're pretty good about getting back with you. So callwithdads.com. And if there's somewhere you want to listen to us and we're not showing on that player, reach out to me as well. Let me know, and I will get it up there. So with that being said, I do appreciate it. We'll talk with you soon, and thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.